Professor Bert Wachsmuth will give us our first talk on such a system, the Android operating system and its applications.
Great. My actual job is, of course, here to keep you from going to the cookies and grabbing the cookies. I'm supposed to stop you, and you have to listen first to the talk. So what I wanted to tell you about is the Android operating system. Most of you probably know a little bit about it. Some of you know more, some of you know less probably. So I think I called this Android for amateurs. I won't mention gigabytes or gigabits too much. I'll just give you a general overview about the system and where it might be heading, a couple of outlooks into the future. And then Dr. Marlowe is going to give us the real future of computing with quantum computing, and then we get some actual physical ideas from Dr. Shaina. So it's going to be the program. Let me start with Android. If you don't know anything about Android, you say Android what? I'm sure everybody knows about this anyway, but let's just start easy. It's an operating system for mobile devices. So mobile devices are usually small devices, battery-powered devices, such as cell phones or tablets, but also cameras or e-readers. You could also get a refrigerator with an Android operating system, but that's not a mobile device, I'd say. So they often have a touch screen with gesture support. You can swipe, you can pinch, you know all of that. And they connect wirelessly to the internet via Wi-Fi with the tablet or cell phone. If you have a cell phone, it uses data connection, all right? And you usually can acquire new software or apps in addition to pre-installed ones. You can play music, video, often via streaming. Surprisingly, you can make phone calls on it as well and send text messages, so that's nice to know. It's, at least on the phones, not on the tablets, perhaps. And the major competitors for Android system are the Apple, the iPhones, and the iPod and the iPad, and Microsoft with the Windows Phone and the Surface, which you may know about. Some of you may have Windows Phone, I guess. And there are future competitors called Ubuntu and Firefox. So this is something to look out for in the future. They're not ready yet for prime time, but they're working on an operating system for a phone on the for using this software, but it's not ready yet. Quick question: who of you has an iPhone? All right, who of you has an Android phone? Nice. And who of you is so happy to have a Windows phone? They're hanging out together. This is good. The Windows phone. You should move over there. The Windows folks hanging out together. So you know what it's all about. So the next question is, of course, how much does it cost? Phones, as you know, cost between $0 and $650. That depends on what you get. You might get a subsidized version of a phone, which costs $0, but you pay for it every month by paying increased fees for monthly usage. Often you have to sign a 2-year contract. Then you might have expensive phones that are off contract, so you can just pay $600 or whatever the thing costs. Get the device right up front, and then you can get cheaper data plans, and you can often get them unlocked, so you can move to a different provider if you want to, if you're going, for example, abroad or something like that. Those are the devices I would recommend. So if you wanted to buy one yourself, I would recommend buy one pay the money up front, get a cheap data plan, and that usually saves you money, and you're flexible to go to other providers if you want to. And you almost always need a data connection, which costs you about $40 to $100 a month. Tablets are different. They're $170 to $800 just about, I would say. They sometimes subsidize, but not frequently, but not usually. They usually use Wi-Fi only, so they don't have a subsidized data plan for that. They are mainly used for media consumption, web access, social media, and gaming. And many people add an external keyboard and use it instead of a laptop. All right, some of you probably do that as well, I would imagine. Who has a tablet? Who has a tablet being an iPad or an Android tablet? It turns out that Android tablets just recently became the more used operating system for tablets now. There are more tablets running Android now than there are iPads anymore. So how did this whole thing start? Android was developed by a company called Android Inc. in early 2000. Android Inc. was headed by a guy called Andy Rubin. So that's why these things are called Android, because they were Andy's droids. So this guy had a lot of fun, I guess, with droids. He liked computers, he liked robots. And in 2005, Google bought it for not billions of dollars this time, but still a substantial amount of money. Then in 2007, they founded the Open Handset Alliance, which is an alliance of hardware, software, and telecommunications companies devoted to advancing open standards for mobile devices. And they unveiled their operating system Android in 2007. And they made the first publicly available Android smartphone, which was the HTC Dream, available in 2008. That's where this whole stuff comes from. To understand what how the internal things work for an Android phone, you have to understand something about Linux. Right? Linux is an operating system that I'm going to explain a little bit more about in a second. But it's ever since this came on the scene in about 1990, 1991 or something like that, people have been saying that this year is the year of the Linux desktop. So this year will be the year where Linux will supplant Microsoft and will be becoming the default operating system on the desktop. Every year they've been saying that since 1991, basically. Repeating it doesn't make it right. As you know, look at your laptop; it's still running Windows or maybe Mac and maybe Mac OS, not Linux. So this was not right. But if you rephrase this a little bit, then it turns out to be right. If you rephrase this to say mobile computing will replace desktop computing and will be mostly Linux, then it's true. Then it's true that this is the year of Linux now. Okay, what is Linux? So GNU Linux is an operating system that comes in two parts, as I explained in a second. There are a couple of people involved with this. There's the first guy called Andrew Tannenbaum, who made up a system called Minix, an operating system for research. There's a guy called Ken Thompson who actually created the operating system, the Unix operating system. The third guy is Linus Torvalds, which is a guy who created the Linux kernel, whatever that is. I'll explain that in a second as well. The fourth guy is Richard Stallman, who founded something called the Free Software Foundation, which I'll explain as well. All right, so these are some guys, and you can see they're a little bit older because they have a lot of beards. The people who are nowadays working with computers, with modern stuff, they look a little bit more proper-eyed, I guess. This was the 70s and the 80s. That's how we looked like it. Even I still have a beard, so I didn't quite. All right, so Linux kernel and Linux, this GNU operating system called GNU Linux, is comprised of a kernel, applications and tools, a graphic user interface, and applications. Altogether, they make up this desktop operating system, right, called GNU, or sometimes they say GNU Linux. It's packaged into distributions, they call it, these things, and they're called distributions called Red Hat, Ubuntu, SUSE, and stuff like that. Most of them are freely available. Some of them you can pay for, but most of them are free. They run on your laptop just fine. So if you're interested in Linux and want to know more about it, search for one of these things, install it on your laptop. They often come with things that are called live distributions, so you can put it on a CD, run it concurrently on your laptop, and don't touch your laptop at all. Just see how it works, and if you like it, you can reformat your laptop, and then you might be truly doing the year of Linux, perhaps. So modern Linux distribution has about 8% of the GNU apps, 9% of the kernel code is kernel code, and 83% is other stuff. All right, so that's a GNU operating system. And these guys that made this operating system, this Richard Stallman and this Linus Torvald, these guys are very outspoken. They don't shy away from controversy. If you talk to these guys, they don't hold back. They give you they tell you what you think. We had Richard Stallman, for example, on campus maybe a couple of years ago, and the first thing he was telling us, he was cracking down on us because we have given in to the man by using IBM's Lenovo software, Lenovo hardware. We're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to use only free stuff and things like that. He was not happy with us, and he did not hold back. So I mentioned Linux kernel already. Linux kernel and this anti-GNU app. So what is the Linux kernel? The kernel is the lowest level of software that interfaces with the hardware in your computer. So in other words, if you want to run something on a Unix system or Linux system, which I explain the difference in a second as well, then you don't actually do that. What you do is you run it on a kernel, and the kernel mediates all the calls that you're making to the operating system. So if you request a memory, Then the kernel gets the request and says, yes, you can have this memory, and tells another process that it can have that memory, stuff like that. So the kernel mediates between the user programs that are running and the actual hardware on the system. That way you can keep everything safe. So there can be no two programs that access the same memory or access the same part of a disk, because the kernel will stop you from doing so. The kernel is the most important part of the operating system. It makes the whole thing work at the lowest level. The Linux kernel is free and open source software. It's been released under the GNU General Public License, version 2, whatever that is. So it's a free and open software. And it was created, like I said, by this guy, Linus Torvald. That's why it's called Linux. It's modeled after Unix. That's why the X is in the end. And this guy's name is Linus, so that's called Linux. And it's originally developed for an 386 processor. For those who remember that, those were the processors that were once very common. But it's been ported to every other processor nowadays as well. Everything that you can buy runs a Linux kernel. Even your iPhone and your Android could run Linux kernel. And it's similar to the proprietary Unix kernel, which I explain the difference in a little while. And it runs by now on about 92% of the top 500 supercomputers. So in other words, in the research community, and where the big machines are, they use this stuff all the time. You actually use this stuff as well, which you will see in a second, but you might not be aware of it. The first version of the Linux kernel was introduced in 1991, and the current version is 3.13. If you're interested, I'm sure you are interested. And then there's the GNU Project. So there's the kernel that I explained right now, and there's the GNU Project. The GNU Project, the first thing you need to know is, why is it called GNU? That is supposed to be a funny recursive definition of a name. GNU is not Unix, which explains the N and the U, but not the G, I guess. So I'm not sure why I'm really not sure why it's called GNU. I think it's only called GNU so that they can make the word new out of it and have a nice logo. This is the logo of this Free Software Foundation. It was announced in 1983 by this guy Richard Stallman at MIT. There he is, but this is not at MIT. Does anybody see? Can anybody see where that is? Jubilee Hall. That's Jubilee Hall. That's where we invited him to give a talk. And it was an interesting talk at that. Very interesting. So it consists of libraries, compilers, text editors, a shell, and windowing system, whatever that means. In detail, if you want to know details, stop at any time or ask me at the end. That is okay. But as I said, I don't want to give you the total detail, the technical details, more of a general overview. So the goal of this Richard Stallman and the GNU project was to create a fully functioning free and open operating system. Open means that you can look at the code and see how it works with the source code, so that if you think you can do it better or you don't like something, you can go fix it and make it better, make it work differently, and then recompile it and use it yourself, and maybe sell it if you want, or do anything else that you want. It's completely free. You can do with it what you want. That didn't work out because these guys only made the tools and the libraries, but they're missing a kernel in '83. So this guy, for 10 years, he was trying so hard to make a complete operating system, but in 1991, or 92 actually, when the Linux kernel came about by Linus Torvald, they managed to merge those things and create the GNU Linux software. That was the operating system that they created. All right, so I mentioned Unix a couple of times, so you might wonder, what is Unix versus Linux? In Linux, I explained. Unix is a multitasking, multi-user operating system developed at AT&T Bell Labs. And it was developed by Ken Thompson, whose picture you saw a while ago, Dennis Ritchie, whose picture doesn't look much different, actually, and others. So they wrote this Unix system, but it's proprietary. AT&T Bell Lab owned the thing, and if you wanted to use it, you had to pay the money. Nowadays, Unix is really only a trademark owned by this group called the Open Group. So if you want to create a Unix system, you can create anything you want to. But if you want to call it a Unix system, you got to have it certified by this Open Group. So you got to submit your code to this Open Group. They got to check it out and put a stamp on it, and then you have a Unix system if they stamp it, if they certify it. There are open Unix systems or closed Unix systems. Open means the source code is available, you can look at it. Closed means it is not available, you cannot look how it works. Neither one is free, though. Neither one is free. And that's why these guys, Richard Stallman and Linus Torvalds, got busy, because they wanted to create a free version of this Unix system. That's why they created GNU Linux, and it's Unix-like. In other words, it's functionally equivalent to Unix, but it's written from scratch without Unix code. And if I say this, if I call Linux Unix, then I'm actually in violation of trademark rights, so I should be arrested on the spot. But don't give it away. It's okay. I think you can say that anyway. So Linux is like Unix, but for free, and you're not supposed to say that. So what does it all have to do with Android? Good question. You were wondering. Turns out that Android is based on the Linux kernel. So Google took the Linux kernel, which, as you know, as I told you, is freely and available to anybody who wants to take a look at it. And they took a look at it and they modified it. They forked it, as they call it. They modified it, and they made it work with the special constraints that phones have and mobile systems has, namely small memory, few memory, low battery, low power requirements. So they changed the kernel and made it work with these kind of restrictions. They forked it over, so that means if Linus Torvald comes up with the next version of the Linux kernel, then Google has to go and take this code and specifically check it against their version of the kernel, see if it improves it, if it gets into conflicts or not, or if it works with their version of the kernel. So it takes a little bit of it. It takes a little while. Forking is always something that you have two versions of something that used to be one. It includes libraries, utilities, and tools. And it includes a framework for touch interface and gesture support. And on top of that, you can build your apps. So as I said, this is open, and you can download the source code. So if you're really interested, if you want to increase your geek factor, you go to this site, source.android.com, download the whole operating system and compile it. And then you rename it so that it's no longer, when it comes up, it's no longer called Android, it's going to be called Bert or whatever, or Wachsmuth operating system. That's great, and you can sell it if you want. You can do whatever you want with it. That's fine. You cannot call it Android, though. You can call it anything you want, but not Android and not Unix either. If you want to call it Unix, what do you have to do? Get it certified by the open group, right? If you want to call it Android, you got to get it certified by, guess who? By Google. Google owns the rights to Android, so they happily certify this. It doesn't cost you anything. Remember, you can do this all for free. You send it to Google. You do have to pay a little bit for the process of certification, but not much at all. So you can generate your own operating system if you want to. If you want, however, to be a complete Google Android operating system, and you want to use the Google apps like Maps, Google+, Play Store, Search, Cloud Support, stuff like that, then that's no longer open source. So Google has the free open part of their general operating system. They add these apps and stuff to it that are not open that you can download as well. If you want to download them, however, and you want to put them into your system, you need to be certified by Google to use those services, and you need to be certified, in fact, to carry the Android label as well. Got it? So that's Android. Then there are Nexus devices. So some of you may have, does anybody have a Nexus phone? Oh, that's too bad, guys. You're not so cool, not as cool as I thought. So what happens is, of course, you need to have devices that run this software. Right? You have created this operating system, so you need to run it and make sure that it works on the hardware. On which hardware does it work? Well, this is where these Nexus devices come in. The Nexus devices are these reference devices to test the Android operating system. They are built by different companies. They have been built by HTC, by Samsung, by LG. They're overseen, they're spec'd out by Google. So Google says, I want the system to have that much memory, SD card or no SD card, and whatever Google says is the law. And these guys design it, and Google also says, I want this to look like this, have a screen size like this, and whatever. These guys design it, they build it, sell it, and then it gets, the nice thing about this is that if Google updates the Android version, Nexus devices get updated first and automatically by Google, which is nice. And they always have the latest version of Android first. The current Nexus device is the Nexus 5, which is a nice phone, costs about $400. Very nice phone. A couple of informations about why you should care about Android. Android shares of the global phone market is 81%, so basically everybody uses Android. This is kind of odd because in my earlier survey, you saw that most of the people here use iPhones, not Android, right? So how come this is 83%? Because of the rest of the world. The rest of the world does not use iPhones that much because they're so expensive. 1 billion Android devices are activated, so this is quite a lot. 1 billion devices. 48 billion Android apps are installed from the Play Store. So an app costs about $1, you can say. Every other app is free. Let's say half of them are free. You're talking 24 billion bucks. That's real money. There are 11,868 different models of Android systems available. So this is one of them. So this is not different phones or so. This is different devices. So I have a Motorola X. You have a Samsung Galaxy S4 and S3 and S5 and whatnot. There are 11,000 of these different devices available. Ton. Because it's so easy to make the operating system. So you can make the operating system, build the hardware around it, sell it, and hope to get rich. And on top of it, there are scores of screen size and resolution, and on top of that, there are 8 different versions of Android simultaneously in use. So it's a mess. By the way, if you want to keep anything out of this talk, I have a couple of, I don't give you 3 comments. I don't have as many as people here. So go fight for it. This is what I just said in a nutshell. So if you take anything away from this talk, take this away from this talk, and that would be nice. This is going to be on the quiz at the end. So like I said, there are different Android versions. So there's versions 1.6, 1.5, and so on and so on. They all have names of sweets. They're called cupcake, donut, eclair, frozen yogurt, gingerbread, honeycomb, ice cream sandwich, jelly beans. The latest one is called Kit Kat. So this all makes you hungry, I guess. That's why I'm blocking you. You can't have the cookies yet, no? You have to wait. And you can see that 50% are using the version 4 of Android, just about. 23%, 60%, 26% use version 2, and so on and so on. So all these versions are what you have to take care of if you want to write your own app. You have to make sure that it runs at least for version 2.3 and version 4, right? Because then you reach the majority of the people. They can buy your app. That would be good. This is the first phone the first Android phone. I actually have that one, but I can't find it anymore. I gave it to my daughter a while ago, and that means that was a kiss of death. So it was, like I said, it came about in 2008 in October. Compare that to the first iPhone in 2007. So it came a year before the iPhone. Version 3 is interesting of Android, called Honeycomb, because that was the first version of this operating system that they wrote for tablets specifically. So that was interesting. They changed a couple other things, but they mostly supported big screens now. So you can write an app that runs on your phone and on this tablet without changing the app. It will automatically adjust to the screen size that you have. And the first iPad compared to that is 2010. This one was released in 2011. So again, they were about a year early. Apple was a year early. The current version of Android is version 4.4 or 4.1, 2, and 3 are all considered current versions, I guess. And they have special features called Google Now. Does anybody know Google Now? I'll show you how this works in a little while. It's awesome. They do voice dictation. They have an NFC support, which is a near frequency communication chip. It's built in there, so I can go to checkout at any store that supports this stuff and pay with my phone. Very nice. It's a regular credit card payment, but it goes to my phone. It's much more secure than I would not be in the trouble that Target is in right now when they got when somebody stole all these credit card information. If more people would use this NFC stuff, then this would not have happened. Then all the flagship devices that you can buy, like the Google Nexus 5 that I mentioned, the Samsung S5, the new one, is an unfortunate name, right? They named their phone the new one. So if you go to the store, you want to buy, what do you want to buy? You want to buy the new one. They say, which one? You want the new one. Which one? The new one. So, no, the new one. You want the new one. So the Motorola X is another one, and so on. And the Nexus tablets are reference devices for tablets as well. Here you can see what would have happened if these guys had come through with their mascot. So they're brilliant programmers, very smart guys, but they frankly suck as graphic designers. This was their idea. This was the idea for the Android mascot, right? This would not, if they had come through with this, then there would be no Android probably in use right now, because everybody would say, oh my God. But thank God they had somebody who was on staff. There was a graphic designer. She designed this guy here, and that has become the mascot of Android, and that has become very successful. And there are different variations of it where he eats an apple and stuff like that. Breaking news, just so that you know, I just read that a couple of weeks ago, in fact. Steve Jobs, who created the iPhone and the iPad, the Macintosh founder, is going to be on a US postage stamp in 2015, so that's going to be nice. So if you want a portrait of him, wait till 2015. Other guys, he's going to be in good company with Harvey Milk, the mayor of San Francisco, who got shot a while ago, some time ago. Johnny Carson, Jimi Hendrix, my favorite, the Peanuts are going to be on there. So that's nice. If you want to be on a stamp, there's an app for that, of course. There's an app for everything. Let's check this out. Look at that. All you have to do is live in the UK. And you can make your own stamps with your own photo on it. So there's an app for everything. I mean, it's honestly true. There's an app for everything. If you're Steve Jobs, you just have to wait for it. I mean, if you were still alive, you would have to wait for a little bit. The US government would make a stamp for you. If you're not Steve Jobs, you do it yourself, pay some money, download the app for Android here, and make yourself a phone and move to the UK. Now, I mentioned that Android has so many different versions and so many different devices, so there's a lot of what they call fragmentation. Fragmentation means that there are multiple devices with different hardware components and screen resolutions. So that's a problem. It's a problem because, on top of it, because multiple versions of Android they coexist, like I said, version 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. And what that means is that different manufacturers add their own features to the Android system. So if I was making a phone and I wanted to make a new phone that sells well, I would get the operating system from Google, download the Android code, like I said, like I told you. Then I would have some killer feature that only works on my phone, add it to the operating system, get the whole thing certified by Google, and then ship the whole thing and hope that it sells. That's nice. So I'm having value-added programs on my phone, so that I want to make sure that you buy my phone, not anybody else's phone. They come in different varieties. There could be minor changes. I just added a couple of apps that I would add to the system. They come in major changes where I actually take some Android features and replace them by what I think will sell better. Better home screen, a better camera app, stuff like that, for example. Or I could go all crazy and change the whole thing. I don't want to do the Google services, for example. I don't want to do the Google services, but I want to do my own thing completely. That you can do that just fine, and some people have done this. In particular, Amazon Kindle has that. But what the trouble with this is that you don't have access to the Google Play Store. So that apps that are sold that are created for Android may or may not work on your system, because this system is not certified by Google. So it doesn't download the standard app. So you have to provide your own store to get the apps. And you can't do that because that costs a lot of money. That's expensive to do. Amazon can afford to do this. A couple other people can, but not too many. But if you're willing to do that, more power to you. You have all the tools to do that if you want to. What that means is the big downside of this is when Google now updates an Android operating system, each manufacturer has to adjust the update to their own hardware and rewrite the value-added apps. That could be different. That depends on how difficult it is, on how many changes they made. But on top of it, they have to get it recertified by Google again, which takes time again. And it takes time to rewrite the code, to test it, to get it certified. It takes resources and money. On top of this, this is stuff that the companies must spend on old phones. This is a phone that people already have. They have to spend resources on getting the newest version to work on this thing, but they're not making any money off of it. That means they're not likely to do so. So that means for you, if you buy one of the hottest new phones, like the Samsung Galaxy S5, then in 2 years it's going to be outdated, and they're unlikely to upgrade it to the next version of Google. If you buy on the other hand a Google Nexus, one of the Nexus devices, you have a better chance of keeping the newest version of the operating system on there, because those are the reference devices that Google themselves update. They will last a little bit longer. Consumer confusion and dissatisfaction is possible, I guess. And the advantages are, it has sophisticated memory management. So that means it handles memory automatically, which for the programmer is very useful. You can start new apps. You don't have to worry about memory being available or not. You just start a new app, and the operating system will take care of everything that is related to that. for the whole system as well as for each application that runs. Very convenient if you're a programmer, very nice. Is anybody a programmer, by the way? Does anybody program Android apps? You should, guys, you should. It's free. I'll show you how to do it at the end, and then maybe we can go into business maybe. So another advantage is that it takes advantage of Linux security since it's based on the Linux kernel. It has an enhanced security system built in, which is nice. It has strong support for multitasking, which is really useful as well, so it can run multiple programs much nicer than the iPhone can, actually. And it is open source with vital community, so that means everybody and their brother can create an app, and it's free and it's very easy. It costs you nothing at all, just a little bit of brain power and some reading of manuals and everything. The system is very user configurable, so if you don't like the way it looks, that's fine. Just change it, and it looks the way you want it to look. You can change anything you want on it, basically. And apps can be started from other apps via intents, which is really useful. So if you write a program that wants to send email, you don't have to write that code to send email yourself into your program. You simply say to the operating system, please send email. Who wants to send email for me? And the operating system says, I have 3 apps that can send email. Which one do you want to use? And then the user picks the first email or the third or the second one to send the email for you, which is very nice. So as a programmer, that means you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All the time you can use the apps that somebody else has written already and make use of their features. Android versus iOS. Now everybody, the gloves come off, guys. So of course, turns out that both are Linux-based. iOS is actually based on Unix. So Linux and Unix, you know the difference by now, right? Not much difference functionally, but difference philosophically. They both have thousands and thousands of apps as well as cloud support. So they're both pretty good with that. So is the Windows Phone, by the way. The Windows Phone doesn't have quite as many apps, but still enough for most practical purposes. They both work well, and they both accomplish the task they're designed for. So they're both okay. I don't favor one over the other. I do actually, but for different reasons. The iPhone is expensive, while the Android has plenty of choice. So there are certainly expensive devices that run Android. The flagship devices are all $650 or something like that, just like the iPhone S5. But there are a lot of cheap versions available. That's why it's so popular in the rest of the world, especially in developing countries. They can buy the cheap versions of Android phones, and that helps a lot. It's highly configurable, which is nice. But on the other hand, iPhone has many accessories. Since there's about only 6 different versions of an iPhone running device, of an iOS device. There's the iPhone 5S, the 5C, the 4S, the 4, the iPad, a couple of iPods, and that's just about it. That means there are machines out there that you can plug those things into already. Everything is made for these devices. That's nice for the iPhone. Android doesn't have that necessarily. But the most important thing is there is a different underlying philosophy. The Android system is that Google sees the advantage of being open and diverse with all the pros and cons. Apple, on the other hand, likes to maintain full control with all the pros and cons of that. Android programming, the Android apps are written in Java, which is nice for you guys. Who knows Java? Right. Anybody knows C++? Good. So Android is nice. It has a very nice documentation. So it's very easy to understand what you're supposed to do. The documentation is very nice. It's downloadable. It's very well organized, very well written, very useful. It includes an emulator. So if you don't have an Android phone, that's fine. There is one in software that starts up that you can test your program on, which is very nice. There's a decent support for publishing. There's no rating or permission needed to publish. So I'll show you a couple of apps that I published. In fact, just only one. So this is what you are having access to when you publish something. So I published the shoe info app and the iLab, the iLabs HD lab. So you can see, for example, here that it has been downloaded 980 times, this app. Got me a rating of 4.17 stars out of 6, which includes my own rating, which was 6 stars. Once only. What do you take me for? And it's nice. It includes statistics. For example, you can see when, how, at what time, how many versions were in existence when people uninstalled it and stuff like that. So it's very nice for me as a programmer. I get to see who uses the system, if there's mistakes, if there's bugs that are in my program. it flags those for me, it lets me look at them and everything else. The reason why it's downloaded about 1,000 times, but only 180 times in use right now, as you can see here, as it's only in use 134 times, is because there's a new version of the Shoe mobile app out there. This one was created by me and some students maybe 2 years ago, and has since been taken over by the professionals in IT support. And they are creating the new version of this Shoe mobile, and it's looking like this. So this is coming in April. Has anybody downloaded the version 1 of Shoe mobile, by the way? You should all do that. It's kind of nice. And if you didn't do this yet, then that's okay. Wait a little bit till April. There's a new version on there. It looks like this. There is the Seton Hall. It looks nice. You can sign in or not. If you sign in, you can see your profile, your grade, your courses. You can manipulate the money that you have in your Pirate Gold account. It's very nice. For faculty, you can get a roster of all your students with pictures if you want. Very useful. It shows you your schedule, for example. This is my schedule because I signed it there. It's going to have a lot of features for both students and faculty. It's going to be really fun. I'm almost done. The ultimate ended irony is that Microsoft and Apple actually sued manufacturers for patent royalties. They don't sue Google because Google says, go sue me. I'm not making any money on it anyway. So there's nothing you can get from me because they give the Android system for free. But Samsung makes money of it, and HTC makes money of it, so they get sued by Apple and Microsoft. In fact, Apple is right now demanding $40 per device from Samsung for licensing some patents. The court date is March 31st, coming up soon. If you keep that in mind and know that Samsung has recently sold 100 million Galaxy S series phones, you do the math. So they want to have $4 billion. This is real money. So they're not friendly, these guys. And so Apple and Microsoft are actually making money from Android, and Google, who created it, does not. Very odd. Of course, Google does make money in other ways, and good money at that. But directly from Android, these guys profit, strangely enough. The future of Android. So what's going to come up? The future of Android, there's a couple of things that I want to highlight. The first thing is Google Now. Google Now is some predictive search that shows you information relevant to you before you actually search it, which is really handy. And it's particularly handy if you have one of the Moto X phones, this one here, which has an always-on speech recognition. There's a special chip in this phone that listens to my voice all the time. And when I say, OK, Google Now, it comes on, and then I can ask, what time is it? OK, Google, what time is it? That is not surprising, but the nice thing about this is it's completely hands-free. I don't have to touch it at all. I don't have to press a button. It's like Siri that you've heard of, that you know, right? But you don't have to press a button at all. So you can do things, for example, OK Google, OK Google, OK Google. How long will it take me to get home?
The drive from your location to your home is 77.7 miles.
So it knows where I live, it knows where I am right now, so it knows how to get there. And that's right. It's only an hour and 31 minutes, so it's a nice commute. But that's okay, I have Google Now, so I can talk to my phone all the time. It's going to read me my text messages, it's going to be my entertainment system. It works very well. So Google Now is really nice. And what it does is it reads my email. It knows my email since my email goes to Google. So Google knows my email, it reads the email. It knows my search history, it knows my chats, my purchases, my location, my travel patterns, it knows everything about me. In fact, it is the NSA. Really. It is better than the NSA because this special chip listens to my voice all the time. So even if it doesn't do, if I have the phone off, the chip still listens. And it has to be a special chip because it has to save battery. That's why this chip is special. But it's going to be coming to many phones coming in the future, guaranteed. This feature where you just have like when you wake up, you just ask the phone what time it is. You want to set the alarm, you just talk to your phone. You don't have to turn it on, anything like that. Very, very useful. So it's not NSA that you should be afraid of. It should be Google. Google Glass is another thing that is coming that you probably have heard about, right? This is a wearable computer with an optical head-mounted display. So you look to it and you see something in front of you that could be related to Google Now, for example. So it could show me my directions to go home. It knows when the package that I ordered with UPS is on its way, and it shows me where it's currently located or whatever it wants to do. This is nice. You can buy this for the low price of $1,500. Turns out you can't actually buy it. Originally, you could only get it by invitation. So they ran a competition. You had to write a tweet. And then if the tweet was deemed really funny and witty and very smart by Google, then they would sell you the device for $1,500. And you had to drive down to California to pick it up in person. So my favorite tweet was by this guy, LeVar Burton, who is the character Jodie LaForge in Star Trek. His tweet was, if I had glass, it would be a downgrade. And if you can use glass for weird things as well. So the jury is still out if this is going to be useful or not, but it's certainly going to be coming. Into more and more places, it's going to be much cheaper in the future as well. So I'm not sure what you can do with it and if it's going to be useful, but it's certainly going to be showing up in a living room near you, in the shower near you, I guess. There is Android Wear. This is another new thing that's coming up. There is wearable computing like the Google Glasses. This is the new Motorola 360, they call it, the new Motorola watch that's going to be available in a couple of months in the summer. Down there is the new LG watch, which is nice. There are other watches already that you can buy. There's the Samsung Gear and the Gear 2, and there is the, what's the other one called? The Pebble is a smartwatch as well. So Android is up to this again, and they have, again, an OpenS software developer kit so that you can download the software and program for one of these devices, even if the device doesn't exist yet. This would be nice for you to get into. It can interface with Google Now and include voice recognition, so this is up and coming as well. The future of mobile in general, I'd say, is actually related not to anything mobile at all. It's related to things like IBM Watson, which you may know because this Watson supercomputer used cognitive computing to win in Jeopardy against this guy Ken Jensen. Do you know about that? Who has heard about this? So Ken Jensen was the reigning Jeopardy champion. And the nice thing about this system is that it can relate to spoken language. So you don't have to be a programmer to use it. You can just ask it a question in natural language, which is very hard for the computer to figure out what you want. But Google Watson can do this. It now does more useful things. It analyzes genomes to accelerate and help clinicians personalized treatment. So it does useful stuff as well. And the nice thing about this is going to be that IBM is going to open up this system and come up with an SDK and an API so that you can program it for Watson. So Watson's going to do the heavy lifting, going to do very smart computing for you, and you can access it from your phone. I'm not sure for free, but you can access it from your phone. There's another thing like this called Wolfram Alpha, which you've heard about. I'm sure you've used that in some of your calc classes, perhaps, which is another really useful thing. It calculates answers. You can ask it questions, and instead of giving you an answer like Google, it actually gives you answers like scientific answers, which is very, very useful. So the future of mobile is actually not mobile at all in some sense, but it's these things that I'm working on behind the scenes. And the buzzword for this is, of course, big data. And the reason why this all works is because your devices are all interconnected. So what's going to happen is that these devices are going to be more and more connected. They're going to talk to your phone. They're going to talk to your car. They're going to talk to your house. Everybody's talking to IBM Watson supercomputers, and Watson figures out whatever it wants to figure out. And then you can access the information from your smartphone again, or from other devices as well. That's what's coming up in the near future, I think. To find out how this all is going to work, I'm going to stop here and we're going to listen to the next talk if you guys want. But if you have any questions about this, by all means, let me know as well. So.